Hi, this is Damon with Damon and Associates Realtors, brokered by Real. Welcome to our video series on YouTube. Today's video is going to be your guide to agency and what a buyer's agent, a seller's agent, a dual agent, a designated agent, what those mean to you as a consumer. The goal of this video is for you to understand what an agent is supposed to do when you engage them or hire them for your real estate transaction. And just in case you're wondering, I've sold literally thousands of houses. I've been selling houses for over 20 years. So let's talk about the different types of real estate agency. What is a real estate agent and who do they represent? So an agent represents either a seller, a buyer, neither, or both. And I know that's a little bit confusing, but we're gonna go into it and explain what that means exactly. So a listing agent represents a seller. So a listing agent is hired by a seller to represent them and their best interests. Legally, they have what's called a fiduciary duty to the seller to represent them and their best interests. That means they do not represent a buyer, they do not represent a buyer's company, they do not represent a buyer's agent. They only represent the seller. A buyer's agent represents the buyer and the buyer's best interest. The buyer's agent is engaged by the buyer and they have a fiduciary duty to represent the buyer and the buyer's best interest. They have no duty to the seller or the seller's agent. They work for the buyer on the buyer's behalf and they are hired by the buyer to represent the buyer. Dual agency is called dual, meaning both. A dual agent supposedly represents the buyer and the seller. Unfortunately, the way the law is written, the way agency law works, a dual agent, while the name says dual agency, I represent both of you, it actually means I represent neither of you. And what that means is this. A dual agent is when a listing agent has an agent. Someone listed a house and they represent the seller. Then all of a sudden a buyer pops up. Buyer calls the listing agent, buyer knocks on the door, buyer goes on the web and does an inquiry and shows interest in the house, and the buyer's agent shows them the house and then they want to buy the house. And for whatever reason, many agents instantly go into what's called dual agency. They say, oops, now I'm a dual agent, I represent both parties. The fact of the matter is that the law says that a dual agent can represent neither of the parties. A dual agent is now an arbitrator. He's a middleman, okay? He relays information. How much do you want for the house? $300,000. How much are you willing to give to the house? They're asking $300,000. You give $250,000. He's offering $250,000. If either side asks for advice, a dual agent's not allowed to advise either one. They become a middle party, a mediator. That's all they do. They can convey information. Should I get a home inspection? That's up to you. It's entirely up to you. Do you want a home inspection? Well, what would you do? Well, it would depend on the situation. Do you want one or not? And the problem with this is multifaceted. First and foremost, the seller hired somebody to represent them, and now they're not getting represented. So the seller should have an issue with that, okay? The buyer thinks they're being represented because they have an agent and they don't, okay? The biggest problem is this. Typically, the agent aligns, likes, has empathy for one party over the other, is what happens, okay? Like the seller might have hired them, but the seller might be a jerk, okay? And the buyer comes to them, the buyer's really nice, they have this beautiful family, and they just, they're so inclined to like them that they end up advising one party over the other, which breaks contract law, breaks agency law. There's only a couple situations where it ever should happen, although it happens much more often than that. The only situation where it really should happen is when you have an agency relationship with a party. Let's say I have a buyer and they're looking for a house and I'm getting ready to list this one on 123 Main Street. And I tell the seller, hey, look, I don't have a buyer because this buyer is not interested in anything about 123 Main Street. I list 123 Main Street and this buyer, all of a sudden their criteria changes and they're like, you know what, can I look at that house? And I'm like, oh crap, here we go. And because I already know their financial situation, I know what they're looking for, I know what they can afford, all of that. And then I know the same stuff about the seller. I know how much the seller needs, how much the seller wants, what their motivation is. So I can't be neutral in this. That's when a dual agency would happen naturally. It's very rare. If I list a house and someone calls me about that house, then I can certainly represent my seller and treat the buyer as a customer, which means I represent my seller, okay? I don't represent the buyer. All I do is give buyer facts and figures. How much do you want to offer? Well, what should I offer? That's entirely up to you. The seller's asking looking 300. I ran the comps for the seller. We priced it appropriately. We think 300 is a really good price. Well, what if I offer 250? You can take 250, but I'm gonna tell you he's probably not gonna accept 250 because when we ran the comps at 300. I'm working for the seller, okay? I'm working for the seller. I represent the seller. I'm treating the buyer as a customer, okay? This is what nobody ever explains to you, the consumer. You think, hey, I'm gonna call the listing agent, I'm gonna get a better deal. No, you're not. Typically, you get the wrong end of the deal when you do that. And the reason you get the wrong end of the deal is if that listing agent, seller agent is doing their job, they're representing the seller, not you. If they go into dual agency instantly, think about this rationally. They had an agency with the seller. They had no relationship with you at all. And instantly, when they're gonna make double the commission, they're all of a sudden a dual agent. All of a sudden, I represent nobody except I just don't believe that should ever happen. There's only one reason it should happen. We already went over that, and it's very rare. What I do think is that the listing agent represents the seller. Sometimes we call them listing agent, sometimes we call them seller agent. Listing agent represents the seller. They never represent the buyer. There's no way that the listing agent, seller's agent should ever represent the buyer. Even in dual agency, they still don't represent the buyer. So if you call the listing agent, that agent is not going to represent you in any form or fashion in any scenario. They're not allowed by agency law, okay? Buyers should have buyer agents, okay? And the reason they should have buyer agents is you should have somebody representing you in your best interest. Hopefully you've watched one of our previous videos. It's popping up right here, right now. If you haven't, pause this and watch that one so you understand buyer agency. Hopefully you've got a buyer's agent so that you can understand what the buyer's agent's role is. They're going to represent you in your best interests. They're not representing the seller. They're representing you. They negotiate for you, okay? That's what you want if you're buying a house. You want a buyer's agent representing you. The dual agent, we already went over. Dual agent is like a great big X. We don't want dual agent, okay? They're not representing either one of you. It says dual agent. It should be dual non-agent because they can't represent either party. All they can do is be non-emotional, third party that just relays information back and forth. It's almost like they're a pointless human being, okay? You don't want that. Real estate's weird. In real estate, the listing does not belong to the listing agent. The listing belongs to the listing broker. And the way it's worked, and this is a lot of facts that you'll never need, but hear me out. When you sign a listing agreement with the listing agent, if you look at the paperwork, it actually is listed with the listing broker, okay? And the listing broker assigns the listing agent to represent you, even though you've never met the listing broker, okay? So now let's step back. So your listing agent represents you. It's entirely likely that somebody in that firm will be the person representing the buyer, especially if that firm is marketing your property well. So if they're marketing your property, the firm is actively trying to sell your property. The listing agent is actively trying to get people in their firm to show your property and sell your property. And so it's entirely likely you can call the firm and say, hey, we're interested in 123 Main Street. And the firm's gonna be like, great, we're gonna send Sally out to meet you. Sally, great agent, blah, blah. So yeah, you meet Sally. Both of them work for the same firm. Because they do, when you sign a buyer-broker agreement, again, really weird, it's just the way it is. The buyer-broker agreement is with the broker, not with that agent. It's not with Sally. So the listing agreement is with the broker on this side, okay? Even though there's a listing agent, the agreement's with the broker. The buyer agency agreement is with the broker on this side, not with Sally, it's the broker, okay? So if you have an agent on this side, let's just say you got Damon on this side, he's a great listing agent, okay? You have Damon on this side, he's representing you on the list, and then you have Sally on this side representing the buy. Well, then the broker signs what's called a designated agency, which means the broker is going to be the neutral party in the middle. They're advising neither one, and that's okay because you've never met them and probably never will, okay? But you have your listing agent over here representing you on the list side, and you have Sally, the buyer's agent, over here representing you on this side, designated agency, and that's perfectly fine, okay? And if you call someone, if you call the sign and like, hey, I want to see this house, like, great, I set you an appointment, who's going to show me the house? Well, I am. Are you the listing agent? Yes. I don't want the listing agent. Is there someone else in your firm that can show it to me? I want my own agent. That's what you need to say every single time. I want my own agent. I want my own representation. I don't want the listing agent. And look, there used to be this thing where people thought, hey, I'm gonna get a better deal if I go straight with the listing agent. It's not the way it works. The listing commission is set between the seller and the listing agent. It has nothing to do with the buyer or the buyer agent, okay? The commission paid is between the seller and the listing agent. You getting your own representation protects you. It has nothing to do with the agreement between the seller and the listing agent. All right, so circling back to a buyer's agent, let's talk about buyer's agent with a team. Again, I think it's really, really important that when you get a buyer's agent, you get a buyer agent with a team. And the reason is this: when you want to see a house, there's multiple reasons you want a buyer agent on a team. First and foremost, most of your buyer's agents on a team are going to be full-time, which means this is what they do for a living. And that's really important to you. The second thing is this, and look, I truly believe most real estate agents try to do a good job. I just believe that most of them cannot do a great job because there's too many jobs to do. Example being, you want to buy a house. Your sole focus in life for the next 30 days is you want to buy a house, which understandable, okay? And you want to hire an agent to help you find that house. Again, perfectly understandable. Now let's think about what that agent's doing, because you think that agent's dedicated, like I'm paying this agent, X dollars to help me find a house. You're like, this agent's doing this for me. Well, they are. But what they're also doing as an independent agent, a regular agent, is they're also doing these items, okay? So they're doing their marketing. They're listing houses, which means they're on appointments with sellers to list houses. While they're on an appointment to list house, if the perfect house for you pops up on the market, they don't see it. So I know it sounds ridiculous. If they're in a listing appointment for 2 or 3 hours and the perfect house pops up on the market, it could be half a day before you find out about it. In half a day, that house could be sold. They're doing listing maintenance, which means they have to edit the listing in the MLS. They have to post it on multiple websites. They have to print flyers for it. They have to put signs in the yards. They have to put lot boxes out. When a house sells, they have to pick lot boxes up. They have to pick signs up. All these things they're doing, they can't be working for you because they're doing something for another client. They don't have the bandwidth to do it. A lot of times they spend a lot of time calling. If there's a lot of showings on the house, they're calling agents for feedback on the house, trying to find out what the agents say about the house for their listing clients. Again, these phone calls benefit the seller, but they don't benefit you, the buyer, looking for a house. And so when you're looking for an agent to represent you, you need to find out, how much time do you have to represent me? How much time do you have to find me a house? The other thing you want to think about is when you hire a buyer's agent, and especially if they're a dedicated buyer's agent, is they're going to know the inventory. A, they're showing houses 5 to 6 days a week. B, say on my team, my agents usually first thing in the morning, they come in, first thing they do is they check Zillow and they check Facebook Marketplace. Why? You hired them to help you find a house. You didn't hire them to find you a house on the MLS. Let's be clear. If you wanted a house on the MLS, you can find a house on the MLS, okay? And so we're looking for a house for sale no matter where it's for sale, where it's marketed. And so not only are we looking on the MLS, not only are we looking on Zillow for the for sale by owners, but we're also looking Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist for any house that may be listed that matches your criteria. Then they reach out to those sellers and see if it's available to be shown to you, so you're not limited to just houses that are on the MLS. So let me go one step further on buyer's agents. I had somebody this week, it happened, some customer. So a client is someone that signed up with our company. A customer is someone that works with a different company. It's terminology, it's just professional lingo. Anyway, a customer, another agent's client outside the firm, said, hey, my client's out of town. Can you get me in this house? I can't, because you signed an agency relationship with that other agent, okay? And that other agent, so if I were to show you the house, I'd be interfering with the agent's relationship. I can't do that. All right. What has to happen is you need someone from that firm, or you need someone from their team to show you the house. So I said, hey, reach out to them, see if somebody on their team can show you the house. And they said they don't have anybody on their team. So I said, hey, reach out to the broker and see if somebody in the firm can show for you. And they messaged me back and they said nobody in the firm can show me the house. I mean, I'm sorry, you're stuck, because you have a contractual relationship with that broker of that firm. And I'm not allowed legally to interfere with that. I can't show you the house. You're not my client. But like a lawyer talking to another lawyer's client, can't do it. It's a contractual agreement that we are not allowed to break. And so it's really important when you're talking to an agent to say, hey, do you have other buyer's agents on the team if you're busy? Absolutely. Next step is, do you have showing partners? We have multiple showing partners on our team. We have a full-time showing partner who's been doing this for over 26 years, okay? So all she does is show houses. We have multiple showing partners on our team. And the reason we do it is there should never be a time that you want to look at a house that we're not able to show you a house during business hours. And business hours, I'm talking 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. The lot boxes change with time change, so So right now it's 9 p.m. During the winter months, it's 8 p.m. But during business hours, should be never a time that we can't get you in a house because we're not available or somebody on our team's not available. I can assure you that most agents cannot say that because they just don't have the backup systems in place. Again, I don't think they want to do a bad job. I just don't think they're capable of doing a great or incredible job. And we've designed our business model around making sure that we're able to serve you, the customer. So I know that was a lot to digest and some of it might be a little confusing. I will say this, if you're confused about it, shoot me a message, okay? Shoot me a message and I'll shoot you a video and send back a little better explanation on some of it if you don't understand some of the nuances. It is complicated. I will tell you that when we learned it, when real estate school 20 plus years ago, Envision was hats, you know? Like have a hat that says seller, have a hat that says buyer. Which hat am I wearing? Okay, and I'm only allowed to wear one hat. And so if I'm wearing a seller hat, I can't represent a buyer. If I'm wearing a buyer hat, I can't represent a seller. And so it is confusing. So if you're confused, if you have questions about it, if there's nuances about it you don't understand or would like information on, send me a message. Just send me a message, comment down below. I'll be happy to answer it. If I need to do a future video to explain a little more, I will. I can tell you, I tried to explain about a week's worth of real estate school in whatever long length this video is, 5, 10, 15-minute video. I try to explain an entire weeks of education into one video. If you like this video, want to see more content like this, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for more notifications. We will see you next time. Until then, have a great day.